Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for joining the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host, and I am over the moon about the guest I have on the show today. She is known as Janet White to many people, but in my world, she is Janet Meyerhofer. Janet, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am super excited to dive into your story because it is National Nutrition Month, and you have gotten to a place in your life where this is now a career, which I'm going to say at the time when you were babysitting me, I don't know, would probably say 47 years ago in little Poygan, Wisconsin, the idea that not only you would be on my podcast, but it would be to talk about nutrition and you as a nutrition coach, there's no way that even could have entered the realm of possibility.
Definitely.
So give the listeners just a very brief outline of what you are currently doing, and then we're going to go all the way back to talk about how you came to be where you are today.
Sure. I'm currently working as an integrative wellness coach. I am board certified through the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches and also motivational coaches through the Transformation Academy. I do a lot of soul work with my clients, but I do take a holistic approach to coaching, and I feel it's so important that we include nutrition, an overview of nutrition, a review of my clients' nutrition, because it really does affect your emotional health in addition to your physical health, of course. But when people eat better, they feel better overall.
And it's so interesting how 100% aligned we are now, even with what our careers actually are. Because as you know, this is what I've been doing for over 26 years now. It's evolved. Obviously, I started out as a personal trainer, but for the bulk of the last 12 years, it's been very much aligned with that holistic approach. So I want to go all the way back. I grew up in a very tiny unincorporated town called Poygan, which is on the outskirts of the little town named Winneconne, where I went to school, and that's kind of the one that's on the map that people know. And your family also grew up in Poygan, and at some point, almost every one of the Meyerhofer children babysat myself and my sister. And on many neighborhood bike rides, we would go past your house, and either your dad or young John would be out doing some kind of work, and we'd have to stop and chat and talk and all the things. My parents and your parents were very close friends still, right? Still connected to your family in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, as I, followed you on social media and saw that this is what you were doing, I thought, wow, do we have a lot to catch up on? So walk us through young Janet growing up in Poygan and some of the challenges that you faced and how you sorted those things out to get you to where you are today.
Well, when I was born with, I guess to be blunt, facial deformities, and I went through many, many surgeries to correct that issue. So I was used to a lot of, I guess, physical pain, but even as a child, I know your family and my family had very large gardens. So in the summer months, in the fall, when the vegetables and the fresh fruits were growing, I always felt better physically and emotionally. And then as I grew older, got into my teenage years, everyone ate junk food and all that sort of thing. But I noticed when I did, I just didn't feel well. I went through college and my adult years, and I actually took a turn and went to the healthier side of life, ate well, worked out every day, was mindful of being a positive thinker. And then all of a sudden, I started gaining weight. And it was a very quick weight gain like 10 to 12 pounds a month. And I knew something was wrong because it just wasn't right. And I kept getting brushed off by doctors. I know it's a cliche, but you really do have to be an advocate for your health. If you feel something is wrong and you're not getting an answer, keep fighting to get the answer. I finally was really at the close to passing away, and I got into a hospital system or a hospital. They took me in right away. And I had a 15-pound tumor in my abdomen that had wreaked havoc with my whole body. I had many surgeries to correct the damage from the tumor. It was just awful. A lot of horrific procedures, infections, that sort of thing. And the doctors told me when they did a couple of the surgeries, most of my microbiome, which is made up of your good and bad bacteria, is now called the second brain because it communicates from your gut, you know, between your gut and your brain. That's where all the communication goes on in your body. And I was missing most of that. So that would be like in your home if you only had one circuit on an electric panel working. That's the only thing I can kind of, compare it to. So I wasn't wired correctly anymore. I had gained way over 100 pounds, and I was told, you're never going to heal. You're never going to get well. You absolutely can't lose weight ever again. You'll be lucky if you can walk a quarter mile a day if you survive. And when I went home from the hospital after my last surgery, they sent me home with hospice information. So I was at home and I watched a show called The Kindness Diaries. It was such an uplifting show, and I thought, oh, I want to watch next week's episode. So actually, I'm grateful to that TV show because it got me week to week something positive, and I just thought I can do this. If your microbiome grows throughout your life, I'll grow it like a garden. I grew up in a family that grew a garden. I can do this. And I just really focused on good health. And then fast forward a few more years, you had a post on Facebook about the importance of eating fiber from plants. And I thought, what is that all about? And I read your book and I did more research. And I thought I'm gonna try that. And slowly over time, as I increased my plant fiber, I noticed my weight started to come off. And I thought there's gotta be something to that. So I kept up with that and just started making more changes. And now I'm up to about a pound a week that I'm losing. So by this time next year, I will be at like where I should be.
So, number one, I had no idea that you read my book and got inspiration and curiosity from that post. And that,
I
I mean,
did.
I'm a little overwhelmed to know that I was a part of the healing
You
journey.
were.
That's new information for me at this moment. So, who would have thought that, the babysitee would eventually help the babysitter?
I
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to circle back just for a little bit of context. So, at what age was all of this happening, and when you ended up in the hospital, and what were the symptoms and experiences that you were having? I mean, to end up almost dead, I can't even. I didn't know you were going through all that either. Obviously, so if you
Oh,
can give a little more detail on that, because I think when people can hear what some of these symptoms are that we dismiss and brush off as all kinds of other things, maybe
mhm.
hearing it from someone who literally got to almost the end will inspire someone to take note a little sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so it was back in about 2009 that I was having a lot of my monthly cramps were just crazy pain. I asked my doctor about that, and she had me go for a scan, and she said, "Oh, you have a little fibroid. It's nothing to worry about. Most women have them. Don't worry about it. But the pain kept getting worse. I would say for about a year, it was just horrendous. And I went to a different primary care at that time, and she said, "Oh, I noticed this fibroid it got big, but it's still technically, we don't have to take it out, and they usually go away." And I said, "But I'm in a lot of pain." And at that point, it was almost all the time. And I just started feeling really tired and worn out. So I thought I had to work out harder and, that sort of thing. And she kept telling me, this is midlife. This is what you go through. And that's it. And I thought, oh my gosh. Then pretty soon, there was one specific day in 2011. I woke up and my whole body was in pain. I was bleeding profusely. And I was told fibroids can make you do that. Everything kept getting blamed on this so called fibroid. But it was bad. I had nausea, headaches. I was dizzy. I could hardly move sometimes. And that's just so I was home from work, I believe, for almost 2 weeks because of the bleeding issue. And I was told that it's fine. This is midlife. They kept saying, this is midlife and this is a fibroid. And I asked, could I get it taken out? And they said, no, because it's not. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm like, no. So then I went to another doctor, and that doctor had another scan, another ultrasound done. The radiologist came in right after the scan, which usually doesn't happen. You have to wait for your doctor to get back to you. But he said, look, you have a mass in your abdomen and there's a problem. And I'm going to call your primary care because you need to get this thing out and whatnot. And she called me and said, don't listen to him. It's a man. He doesn't know. This is just a fibroid. And that's what the other two doctors said. They just all kept saying the same thing. So then I went from that to just not even really being able to eat because it hurt so much when I ate anything. So I was pretty much on a liquid diet, and then when I switched to doctor number 5, that's when my weight just exploded. Like it was every month I was gaining this enormous amount of weight. And then people would ask me, like, why do you bother going to the gym if you're eating a bunch of junk? Clearly, you're not taking, like, they were so rude and all that. And so then I had to start dealing with that. I had to walk up 3 flights of stairs at my last job to get to my desk. I would go early to be able to take breaks walking up the stairs. And I finally got to a point, it was on a Friday morning in the fall of 2015. And I told my husband, I don't think I'm going to make it through the weekend. I was in such a bad state. I'd already gone to emergency rooms and they said, well, it's right here. You have a fibroid. Like I was weak or something. And what are you going to do about your weight? Well, you tell me. 'Cause this isn't normal for someone to gain that much weight every single month. And by then, I wasn't going to the gym anymore. My husband asked me to call a different medical system. So I called a hospital and I really didn't think I was going to make it through the weekend. The woman who answered the phone said, it's 3:30 on a Friday. Everybody's gone for the day. I'm just here doing paperwork. Why don't you email over your records? I'll print them off and someone will get back to you next week. And I told her, I don't think I'm going to make it. But, she said, well, I can't help you. You can go to ER if you want. And then 15 minutes later, she called me back and said a surgeon was there waiting for one thing to print on the printer. And she had to wait for all my records to print. So she was flipping each page off and they were in chronological order. and she knew there was a problem. And she asked if I could be in on Monday morning at 6:45 a.m. And then she took it from there. And those doctors saved my life. I mean, I went through a lot, but they saved my life. And they were so angry at those doctors who wrote me off. And, they reported some of them to the medical board. But then I really wanted to get well. And I just don't take no for an answer easily. And I think you and I are both very determined people. And I thought, no, I can do this. I know I can. And so here I am today. And now I'm coaching people to not give up and work around obstacles and get rid of negative thinking. And you can do this. Yeah.
Well, I am angry just hearing the story. And here's what's really horrific is number one, that story is not uncommon. And number two, it's still happening.
Oops. It's
So
true.
much of our Western medicine, it's dismissive, it's uneducated, it's uninformed. It is so siloed into what they think they know, and they know what they know, and they don't care if you think you know something you don't. Now, granted, there are thousands of medical professionals who do listen to their patients, who do think outside the box, who do allow for perspective and possibility.
Mm-hmm.
A lot don't. And I mean, I'm sort of dealing a little bit with that currently, and it is incredibly frustrating. And mine at this point is not like a life altering situation. For me, it's just annoying. But when you have a situation like you did, and it just gets dismissed, and then you get blamed, you're doing something wrong, right? Why aren't you taking care? And of course, it was part of that culture. If I'm thinking, so you would have been in maybe early to mid 40s as far
Mm-hmm.
as your age at this time.
Mm-hmm. And that
And
tumor had
so, right,
ruptured.
it's all about, yeah, which only adds to all the toxicity that was in your body, right? But even
Mm-hmm.
just only what 10, 15 years removed, where we're taught to eat less and exercise more. You must not be trying hard enough. You must be eating all kinds of junk food. That's why what's happening is what's happening. It's your fault. You're not doing enough. And still, that message is still pervasive in our community. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about men because I don't know a lot of men who have that kind of situation, but I know women always blame themselves. I'm not doing
Yes.
enough. It's my fault. I'm not working hard enough. Right. And maybe to some degree that might play a tiny bit of role in it, but probably not the whole puzzle. And probably there's something way bigger going on that is impacting your ability to even do the right thing. Right. And so having, like you
Yes.
said, that advocating for yourself and a little bit of divine intervention, having that woman answer the phone, tell you to email your records, having that exact surgeon who was like, wow, we need to do this now, right? All of those things played a role in your eventual outcome. And any one of those things not being present might have had a very different outcome.
Yeah.
So now we're post surgery, right? We've gotten rid of this mass. What does that healing process look like? And then at what point were you like, you know what? I want to learn more about me and myself and how all this works so I can help people. Like, talk about
Mhm.
that whole evolution.
Well, I noticed different things. I think it's pretty standard for a lot of hospitals to send you home with a food list, regardless of your situation. It's not really a very healthy food list. So for a while, I had to be on a liquid diet, and they told me just focus on popsicles, jello, and clear grape juice. And that's it. So I listened to him, and then after the last surgery, my husband's coworker stopped by one night and he said, "Jim didn't tell me all the details, just that you're having healing issues." And I asked him what you're doing to get well, and I was again on a liquid diet after that. surgery because I had to have sections of my colon removed and put back together. And he said, I'm going to show you how to make healthy, clear liquid drinks. And I'm going to give you my juicer. And you can use this while you heal. And so he brought over a bunch of vegetables. He had spinach and celery, lemon. He made a nice drink with that, showed us how to filter it until it was clear. And then he had ginger and carrots, made a nice drink with that. And within 3 days, I felt like a whole different person. I was still healing, but I could notice the difference. So I started juicing real food and ditched the popsicles, jello, and clear grape juice because it's just sugar and it wasn't nutritious. It wasn't helping me. So I did that. And then when I could transition to a soft food diet, they told me just eat pudding. You can keep with the jello like the liquid diet, but just add in pudding and ice cream. And it's like, that's not what? Like, it's a hospital. What are you doing? It was around that time that I saw your post and I thought, okay, I can mash a sweet potato. It's like, that's healthy and the vitamin A helps you heal. So I started mashing my vegetables and pureeing my fruits. And I just kept feeling better. I kept defying the odds. My blood work kept improving. And I thought, there is something to this. But I wasn't losing weight yet. And I didn't want to lose weight for vanity reasons. I wanted to lose it because it's hard on your joints, really hard on your joints if you're overweight. I feel like it's hard on your heart and other body systems. The excess fat actually can take on its own life and have its own little village of bad people that wreak havoc in your system. I didn't want that. So I was looking for an integrative doctor, and my insurance at the time was outstanding. And I wanted to go to an integrative doctor to fill in the gaps where a traditional doctor couldn't help me any. I called the number and told this poor woman my story of why I needed a doctor. And she said, oh, we're a school for integrative nutrition. And I said, oh, what's that? And I talked to her and ended up enrolling in the course. And as I got through the course, I thought, I want everybody to know this, how food affects your whole self. People can be healed. People who are like me are told that this is it. There's no improvements, you can't make any improvements. And I thought that's not right. So I want to help people. And I just really, I wanted to do that. And so I continued the courses for coaching and then became a board certified coach.
And that board certification is so valuable because that means actual doctors refer their patients to you.
Yes.
I know people have gone through that program and it is no joke. It is hard.
It's
You
hard.
have earned every single, your stuff. And so many people go into coaching because they had an experience, right? And I would say, yours is a pretty powerful one. I do want to circle back because I am going to drill this home whenever I can, because it is something that until people decide that they are going to learn about how a human being operates and then be able to use their critical thinking skills, nothing's going to change. The medical profession, our traditional medical system, is a disease care system. They do not get trained in nutrition. They don't get trained in lifestyle,
They don't.
which to me, it is so basic and obvious that what you put in your body is going to impact everything. So I'd like to say, oh, well, that was 15 years ago. I'm sure they've made big changes. No, they haven't. Let me just give you my very real life example from less than a week ago. I went into the oncology department in Denver, Colorado, a pillar of health and wellness. They have juice, right? Straight up sugar, and high processed snacks sitting out on the desk for patients. And I'm thinking, number one, this is a cancer department. What is the number one fueler of cancer? Sugar. And you have this displayed on your countertop. What is going on? And then in the treatment room, if somebody needs a snack, it is always some high processed version of sugar. And I'm just thinking, how is this in 2024, with everything that we know, in a state like Colorado, a city like Denver that is very well, tuned in and educated on nutrition and wellness and health and disease? How is that happening? And if that's happening here, 100% it's happening everywhere. So, listeners, please, I'm telling you, you have to be a critical thinker. That does not make sense. To Janet's point, I'm going to suck on a popsicle and eat ice cream and pudding, and that's going to heal me? What? That makes absolutely no sense. So, yay for you. I'm gonna say it's the Poigan upbringing that helped you be a critical thinker, but also then wanting to learn and understand more. And yes, we know more than we've ever known before. I teach and coach on this stuff all the time, and people are still very uninformed or ill-informed about it. So it's going to take a lot of conversation, a lot of repetitive conversation, but ultimately it takes each individual to decide that they actually want to learn and understand it.
Yes. And you don't have to be perfect at eating. I think a lot of people get nervous because they think, oh, I'm never ever going to be able to have like an ice cream cone or a chocolate chip cookie or a slice of pizza. Well, there are a lot of really delicious alternatives, but you can have that treat now and then, just not all day and that sort of thing. I want to get out there and just educate people and make them feel good about themselves and empower them to make, holistic, healthy choices for themselves. And definitely nutrition is, good nutrition is an outstanding choice.
Absolutely. And I know it gets incredibly challenging because we live very full lives with busy schedules. And, we have this idea that healthy food takes time and it's expensive and all the reasons we make a different
Hmm.
choice. However, when you realize what that food is going to do to you or for you, you then maybe determine that that work on the front end is worth it. Because whenever we're going to make that quick, convenient, impulsive choice, there is a slim to zero chance that it's going to be a high quality, nourishing one.
Hmm.
And to your point, if that is the occasion, anybody who listens to me, the Better Beings Food Island has the lip smack and smiley face right at the center. That means, yes, there is room in an overall healthy dietary intake for the things that are just delicious. But those should be relatively rare and infrequent. And
Hmm.
more often than not, reaching for real whole foods that do take time. I mean, that is the reality of it. And yet it's hard now or harder later. One of my mottos I will stand by forever. It is always going to be the case. And the system is the system. What kids are being fed at school? Oh my gosh. I
Oh,
mean, this is
it's
why it's getting
terrible.
worse. Because say, Janet, right? We grew up with gardens. We grew up eating relatively real food most of the time. It wasn't
Yeah.
probably till later teenage years and early
Hmm.
adulthood that we really got like the fast food and all that stuff. Kids these days are literally growing up on that stuff from, the moment they're toddlers. And that means another decade where they are not properly developing their microbiome and not properly nourishing their bodies to be able to grow and create all the chemicals and hormones and tissues and organs to be able to operate correctly. And they are instilling their habits, which are only going to become more and more difficult to change later. So in your practice, do you not only work with people who are trying to figure themselves out, but also how to support the people around them, including maybe making some
Yeah.
choices to help their kids establish really good
Hmm.
habits?
Yeah, I actually seem to be a magnet for football players, but I was absolutely shocked at how many NFL and professional, now there are different levels of professional football, different leagues and whatnot, but almost all of the football players have told me they receive a lot of fitness training, but almost no information about healthy eating. So they're thinking I can go out, eat 4 quarter pounders, or they tell me they do this, but they work out, so they wear off the calories. And then I ask them, well, where does all the junk that's in that burger go? It goes into your cells and it turns on all these switches for illnesses and all that. And I was shocked, absolutely just dumbfounded recently at the holiday season that just passed. I was in a department store, a chain department store that has a coffee shop in there. I don't want to say the name. I don't want to get us in trouble, but there were people buying their children coffee, like big cups of coffee. They were little kids. And then while I was doing my shopping, the kids are running around and the parents are yelling at them, and you're too wound up. And I wonder if he's ADD. No, I think he's just jacked up on the caffeine. Like, people aren't. I get really wound up about the topic, but it's because I care. I want people to be healthy and happy.
Yeah, well, as somebody who lives around schools that has off campus, every single kid coming from that high school walks back with their gigantic, and I'm going to say it, Starbucks, because it's right down the
Yeah,
corner,
yeah.
870 calories, full of sugar and caffeine, not to mention it costs $7, but that's a whole other. So, oh, healthy food is so expensive. Really? Really? Yeah, I can't even. And then yes, when I see young kids running around with giant sodas or giant juice, even juice. I've been talking about juice for decades. Can we just stop with the juice? We just
Mhm.
need to stop with the juice.
But people just aren't educated.
Right.
It's one thing to say that's not good, but I feel like how do we reach all these people to say this is why we have a concern for you and your children's health? This is why, like, this chemical does this, we put it in antifreeze or we embalm bodies with whatever, and you're eating it. In fact, we bought a new printer, my husband and I, and he loves bacon, my husband, and it just makes me cringe sometimes. But right on the package of the ink, it said, do not consume. This product contains nitrates. And it went into this whole thing. And I thought, so I showed it to him and he's, oh, oh. So now he buys bacon uncured without the nitrates, but sometimes I think he still reverts to the unhealthy version. But that was like, oh my God.
Well, and that's why I have this podcast. And honestly, Janet, there is no shortage of information out there. Again, I'm going to go back to personal responsibility on the individual. You have to decide that you actually care about what you're putting in your body. I
True.
just had this conversation with a corporate group, and I asked people about the last time they bought a refrigerator or an appliance or a car. How much time did you spend researching that purchase? And it was anywhere from 30 days to 12 months, depending on what the purchase was. And I asked them, how much time do you devote researching the food you put in your body? And the answer was, for most of them, pretty much zero. They
Hmm.
might read the label and then they'll be like, oh, it doesn't have that much sodium, it's probably good for me, because that's the one thing that they're looking at, or whatever it is. So And I get it. It takes time. And back in the day, we didn't have to think about this because we didn't have this kind of stuff at the ready
True.
in our food supply. For you and I, especially when we grew up, it took a lot of effort to go through fast food. We had to go all the way to the big city of Oshkosh to go to a fast food
And we
restaurant.
only had a couple to choose from.
Yes, yes. And then, when Hardee's opened up in Omro, and I worked at it, I did. But here now we have fast food. Ooh, that one's only 10 minutes away instead of 30 minutes away. And you drive past it all the time, no matter where you're going, you got to drive past it.
It's true.
Well, now, I mean, we know they are literally on every corner, every block, multiple options, constant, all everywhere. And those basically become the only option. So again, I get it that all this convenience exists, and yet we still also do have grocery stores. And I know there are places in this country that the accessibility of high quality food is incredibly limited. And I can't change that. That's a whole other conversation about why there are no grocery stores in those areas. I'm not going to go down my conspiracy theory roads. Most people who know me can probably figure out what I mean, but I'm not going to say it out loud. And so it really does, again, come back to the individual to do their work and just to decide that your health and your life and your quality of life matter to you. And if they don't matter to you, then it doesn't matter what you do. Most people would say that it does matter, but maybe we're not making the effort to show that it matters. And so that's where the switch needs to happen. And it is hard. There's no way around it. I guarantee, Janet, your journey was very hard. You could have given up at any and just said, oh, well, I guess this is my life. You could have said that at any moment, but you didn't. So before we officially sign off today, anything that we haven't covered, and listeners, I recognize I did a lot of preaching today, and I'm not going to apologize for that. When I am passionate about something, I tend to get a little preachy. Maybe I'll work on that, maybe I won't, but I'm going to let Janet wrap us up because I think she has a much kinder, more gentler delivery than I do.
Well, quickly going back to my approach in coaching, I like to address the soul first and see where a person is unbalanced. And honestly, I can share with you that almost all of my clients have a specific goal in mind when they come to me, like building their self esteem or something like that. But when we go back through, when we cover different areas of a person's life, we just take a glimpse and see where someone might want to work a little harder at improving their overall life. Diet is always an area that people are either curious about, they've tried to improve it, but they feel for some reasons like they don't have the money to do it. They just don't really have the interest in it. But once they start making just the slightest improvements, they feel so much better about themselves. They feel better physically. Their doctor appointments go better. You don't have to like make this full turn right away. I learned, making these small changes really did stick. And every single positive change will take you so far ahead. So if you strive to be a healthier person in your nutrition, your emotional and physical being will be so grateful to you for making that change.
That is such a beautiful message and one that I 1000% echo and endorse. Janet, I can't even tell you what a pleasure this has been, and we're going to have many more conversations offline. I kind of need to understand a little more about these football players that keep coming to you. That's another conversation.
They're awesome. They are awesome.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Janet, thank you again. We'll have all the
It's
information
such
in
an
the show
honor.
notes on how you can connect with Janet. Yes, I know that there are people out here that can absolutely benefit from your approach. Having been through what you've been through, you're going to be able to relate to so many people on a level that a lot of people can't because you don't have that shared experience. So this has been delightful. Listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. And now you know that you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.